Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Cancer Support Community Central Ohio's Natural Living Workshop with herbologist Lily Kunning. Today, Lily is going to be sharing information on immune support. So, Lily, we're so thankful that you're here today, and let me go ahead and bring up that PowerPoint that you're going to be using. And hopefully everybody sees the first slide, immune health.
All right. Yes, I do. Yeah, so there's not a lot of slides, but there is a lot of talking. So today we're going to be talking about keeping yourself healthy as we go into the cold season, where we tend to not just cold and flu, but literally the cold weather season. We spend more time indoors, which exposes us to a lot of recycled air, which can cause contagion and illness. And I also wanted to explain a little bit about how the immune system works. No grad level stuff, but just some common things that people experience that maybe they don't realize our immune system responses, and how we keep well versus treating illness. So it's always better to just do some proactive things so that you don't experience illness than it is to treat illness when you get it. So we'll talk about that concept as well, and how gut health plays a huge role in immune health. And of course, as an herbalist, we'll be talking about different kinds of herbs that you can take to stay well this season. But let's start with how the immune system works. I think that's the next slide. Yeah, it is. That woman is actually kissing a ginormous reishi mushroom, which is an immunomodulating fungus, and it's a really big specimen, but it isn't preserved in any way. They actually look like that. They look like they have lacquer on them. They just grow that way. They're beautiful. Anyway, so immune responses, often people try and shut them down prematurely, like fever. So, we've kind of been conditioned by marketing that as soon as you get a fever, you want to take an NSAID, you want to reduce that fever. Oh my gosh, fever. But fever is your body's way of killing pathogens. So it basically creates your body, it's uncomfortable because it's hot, but what it does is it raises your body temperature to an uncomfortable level for you, but a lethal level for many bacteria and viruses. And so fever is one of those things that you really want to allow to run its course unless it's extreme. And I will tell you exactly what extreme is. Over 102 degrees for more than 3 days. So most of us have tried to reduce fever prematurely, on the advice of so many people. But honestly, your best bet is to kind of enhance it by swaddling yourself and just baking for a while, and keeping an eye on it. If you're feeling so overwhelmed by heat, take your temperature, make sure that you have a thermometer. But as long as you're not over 102 consistently for more than 3 days, you should let it run its course. That is your body doing the right healthy thing when you have an infection. And you should listen to your body. It's like, oh, I have an infection, so maybe I need to help it along, not only by letting the fever run its course, but maybe there are some things that I can do to help my immune system really kick this pathogen's butt. The other thing that is an inflammation response, or an immune response rather, is inflammation. So when we have a pretty bad cut, it often will swell and turn red and feel hot, and that is inflammation. And we want to see that when we first get an injury, because what that means is your immune system is responding to a hole in your skin and trying to send everything that it needs there to fight any pathogens that may have gotten in when you got cut. Same with, if you bruise yourself and you get swelling. So that inflammation is basically fluid, which includes blood, going to that area. And with it, with that blood, we carry white blood cells, fighter cells, all of that. to kind of fight any pathogens that may be there. So inflammation also, when it's not chronic and systemic, is actually your body doing its job. And then allergies, especially the respiratory allergies, but also food allergies. That's your immune system being just a little too effective. It's reacting. Let's talk about like hay fever, which is a pretty common allergy. I get it sometimes. That's your body freaking out over pollen the way it should be freaking out over pathogens. It's like, oh, there's these foreign bodies in our respiratory tract. We need to create lots of mucus and inflammation to trap them and to expel them. And of course, it's unpleasant. Your eyes are watering because your body's trying to get rid of pollen, and you get a lot of mucus and congestion and inflammation in the sinus passages. And all of that is your body going, alert, alert, but it's uncomfortable. There are some herbal antihistamines that I can talk to you all about when we get to the herbal section. That's how I treat my allergies. I don't have to take it every day. I take it as needed. And if I wake up and I'm feeling a little congested, I'll go ahead and take it. And then on bad days, I might have to take a second dose right around dinner time. But keeping it in my system kind of keeps that inflammation and that allergic response under control for me. And I'm entering the fall season where I have a leaf mold allergy, and a lot of people do. And they're like, why am I having allergies now? There's no pollen, it's fall, everything's dying. It's probably leaf mold or mildew allergies because it gets very damp here in Ohio in the fall. So that is a very common allergen. I also wanted to speak a little bit about immune dysfunction. And most of my clients are either people that are suffering with a chronic condition. Sometimes it's cancer, and sometimes it's autoimmune disease. And autoimmune disease comes in a lot of different manifestations. Darlene, I see your email. Anyway, it comes in many manifestations. A common one is rheumatoid arthritis, and that's when your own body is attacking the joints. There's also psoriasis, where your body is attacking your skin. Lupus, there's Crohn's disease. There's so many different autoimmune diseases. And really, the only reason they have different names is because they were talked about at different times and sort of discovered and named. But as an herbalist, I treat a lot of them the same, other than symptom manifestations. So, obviously, if someone has Crohn's disease, you also have to help strengthen the gut and help with symptom management when they have flare-ups. But the underlying root cause of autoimmune disease is the same, no matter if it's Crohn's disease or rheumatoid arthritis. And so, I often will treat different kinds of autoimmune disease, and people, especially my beginning students, are very curious as to why, like, there are some of the same herbs in everybody's formula who have immune dysfunction. But that's why. Any questions so far? I know I'm going kind of fast, but I want to make sure we can cover everything. Anything?
I don't have a question in the chat, but Heidi did share that she has reishi mushroom supplements.
Oh yeah, me too. It's one of my favorites. And it's funny. So when I teach my herb class, when I'm teaching people to be herbalists, one of the things that we do is every month people get to experience one herb or mushroom or whatever for that whole month. And they take it and they document how it feels in their body and what kind of effects they think it had before they ever look it up. And the reishi unit is one that corresponds with teaching them about the immune system. And almost everybody loves what it does to their body. Almost everyone. It's pretty astounding. Because usually, you get like maybe a quarter of the people going, "Ugh, no, that was not good." But most people are like, yeah, man, I felt great. So reishi is an example of an immunomodulator, which means it helps regulate the immune system, keeping it functioning well, as opposed to immunosuppression drugs, which suppress the immune system, like antihistamines for allergies. Those suppress the histamine response, or the immunosuppressants that people take in Western medicine for autoimmune disease. The typical treatment in modern biochemical medicine is they take these immune suppressants that keep the immune system at a very low level of functioning, which keeps the flare-ups from happening, but it has the side effect of you getting sick pretty often when anything you get exposed to it. So
Lily, is there a recommended dose for the reishi mushroom supplement?
So it really, dosages really depend on the person. It depends on their metabolism. It depends on their body mass. I usually when I give people reishi, I'm giving people a liquid extract, a tincture, and I usually have people start with a dropperful twice a day. And a dropperful is when you squeeze the bulb and it goes about halfway up the vial. But it depends, if I know someone is in deep immune crisis, or someone is really big, or they're a marathon runner, I'll probably make their dosage a little higher. But that's a good baseline to start with, and you can always tinker with it up or down depending on how it makes you feel. Yeah. And so then immune boosting herbs or medicines help accelerate the immune system in some way. Some of them help your immune system create more fighter cells. Some of them increase their response rate. It just depends. Different medicines and plants have different effects on the immune system, but we sort of have this broad category of immune boosting herbs that we talk about, and they work in different ways with different mechanisms. Did you have another question? I thought I heard you intervene.
No, there's nothing in the chat.
Okay, sorry about that. Cool. So let's see, I think we should move to the next slide. All right. So ways that we can keep ourselves well. That's the main thing that we want to do, right? Nobody wants to get sick. So the number one thing that I can't stress enough is quality food, nutrient-dense food. Not all food is nutrient-dense. Some of it's just for fun, although I did find some cupcakes that sneak vegetables in that I can give my kid. But you want the most food that you intake each day should have vitamins and minerals and amino acids that help build your body and build new cells, because you want your body to be able to replace worn out cells. Also, sleeping. You will know what is a good amount of sleep for you. Some people it's, I need 8 hours or I can't function the next day. For me, it's more like 6. I think it varies, and as you get older, you actually need less, which is interesting. I guess I can accomplish more now because I'm not sleeping as much. But you want to get good quality sleep, right? You don't want it to be constantly waking up in the middle of the night, because then you're not reaching REM state, and that's the good quality sleep, right? You want to be able to dream even if you don't remember it. You want to reach that REM sleep because that helps your brain clear everything out and start fresh every day, as well as laying still and resting your physical body. I know that yesterday I did my job here in the warehouse, and then I went hiking, and I was tired at the end of the day, so I was happy to go to bed. And I have a really wonderful bed, and that's the thing, when you are trying to make quality sleep your one of your goals, maybe that's something that you need to work on. Look at your bedroom. Is your bed comfortable? Do you wake up with pain? Because if you wake up with pain, You need to look at your sleep positions, and you also need to look at your mattress. It may be time to get a new mattress, because you shouldn't wake up in pain. You should be able to get up and go, okay, I'm a little stiff, but I'm not sore. And you want to be able to sleep through the night and reach REM states. And so there are different ways that I help people in wellness coaching to achieve sleep. It depends. Some people can't get to sleep, and it's like their brain won't shut off and it's really hard to get to sleep. Some people wake up in the middle of the night and then they can't get back to sleep. And so those are treated a little differently. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about that if they have that concern. Getting movement. Everybody can move somehow, right? It isn't just walking on a treadmill or, doing cardio or whatever. Like, there are lots of different ways to get movement. I work in my garden. I lift things all day long. I walk a lot. I'm very rarely sitting during the day. And that keeps me healthy and keeps my body moving. And not only does that continue to help me maintain muscle mass, which is something that as we get older, we lose some of that, it also helps us keep bone density up. The way that your body creates new bone tissue is through impact. So like when you're walking, that experience that your body receives, that sensation of feet hitting the floor or the ground and that constant impact on your legs cues your body to make more bone cells. And if you have bone density as an issue in your life, it behooves you to keep moving every day. Make sure that you get at least 30 minutes of movement every day. Avoiding toxins is huge for healthy immune functioning. And when I say toxins, I'm not like talking about going on a diet or doing a master cleanse. What I'm talking about is Americans are surrounded by all kinds of chemicals that we keep in our homes and that are in our soil and our air and our water. And the more you can avoid them, the healthier you are going to be, because a lot of these autoimmune diseases are caused by exposures, repeated, constant exposures. And so I tell people to start underneath their sink and in their basement and look at all the chemicals that they have stored there. One of the resources that I often give to this class is ewg.org, Environmental Working Group. You can look up any product or any chemical that's listed on an ingredient list and find out if they are dangerous. And getting rid of those things in your home, disposing of them properly, keeping them away from you, because the more, it's not just, one chemical, right? Like some people are like, oh, well, I want to get rid of the weeds, so I'm spraying the Roundup. It's just one thing, and I'm wearing gloves, and it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal because we store it in our house, we breathe it in, it gets into the soil, the dog sniffs it and has problems. Lots of dogs get nasal cancers from chemicals on lawns, and it poisons the groundwater ultimately. So it is a big deal, and there's no such thing as a way. And so we need to contain things and not purchase them in the first place. So if you have any questions about toxins, I have a whole series of handouts. I think we did some of those classes earlier this year on toxic home care and things like that. But yeah, that's a huge way that you can debilitate your own body through toxic exposure. Cleanliness, obviously, if you don't wash your dishes very well, you could get sick. And so we want to make sure that bacteria buildup doesn't happen in our kitchens, in particular kitchens and bathrooms. They're the grossest places in our homes. And so ways to keep them clean without using toxins are altering the pH. So bacteria and viruses can live within a certain pH. And so I often will infuse an apple cider vinegar with anti-pathogen herbs so that all of that antiviral and antibacterial actions get infused into the liquid. And that's what I use to clean surfaces. I'll use it in my toilets, in my sinks, on my counters, and it's all natural and it's not going to hurt you. But yeah, keeping clean, don't let dishes sit around, change your toothbrush. People often forget to change their toothbrush and they're supposed to do it every 3 months. I was guilty of that this year. All of a sudden I realized, I was like, oh, I think it's been 6 months. And I have no excuse. I mean, I use it every day. I touch it. I'm like, So changing your toothbrush is huge. And mouth care is huge. If you feel like you have sores in your mouth, or maybe you have a toothache, please get it checked out. I was talking to Darlene a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, I know someone who died from a toothache because she didn't have dental insurance and she couldn't afford to go to the dentist, and the infection traveled throughout her body and she died of blood sepsis. It is a real thing, and I bet it's a real thing that happened a lot more often before our modern healthcare system, so please take care of your teeth as well as your body. Stress. If you have something that is stressing you out, it should be addressed. And that's easier said than done. I'm a big stress case today. I have so much to do. So I work on saying no. I work on delegating. I work on prioritizing and planning. You should see my planner. I have it in another room, but it's all color coded and everything. I also do mindfulness practices every day. I will journal, or I will get out in the garden and just spend time only with the plants. I'll meditate. I definitely work on my stress levels because I'm an anxious person, and in the past, I have treated that anxiety with workaholism, like just keep working. Don't even think about it. Just keep working. Everything will be fine. But that leads to all kinds of, burnout, which is no good. So taking care of yourself and making sure you are addressing things that stress you out. That could be a relationship, right? That may mean putting boundaries up, and that's hard work too. And then let's skip one and go to gut health. So your digestive system is the first thing that's formed when you're, a zygote. It's the first thing that happens is you create this little tube that's going to be your digestive tract. And everything else kind of comes out of that. Your nervous system, including brain development, your endocrine system, which regulates everything in your body, and your immune system. 75 to 90% of your immune system is in the gut. So you want good digestive functioning. In Ayurveda, they call that building digestive fire. Being able to break down what you eat, assimilate those nutrients, be able to expel them properly. So if you have any kind of gut issues, whether that's acid reflux, diarrhea, constipation, gallbladder attacks, oh gosh, there are so many, that needs to be addressed. And the way to do that is through tonic herbalism rather than trying to treat it with over-the-counter drugs. There are far too people in this country that are on PPIs, which are called proton pump inhibitors, things like Zantac and Prilosec. They're meant for people to prevent GERD, right? But the problem is that they cause stomach and liver damage long-term. They're not meant for long-term. They're kind of to shut a process down and then start over with something else. There are lots of ways to tonify your digestive system that I'm happy to speak to if people are interested. But yeah, making sure that your digestive system is functioning properly and making sure that you have good gut biome, right? Microbiome, the probiotics and everything. You don't have to take probiotics every day. Your body should be able to maintain a healthy colony once it's built up, unless you've taken pharmaceuticals or had anesthesia or had a digestive bug that had diarrhea, then your colony might be a little decimated and might need some building up. But generally speaking, just eating fermented foods now and again will help maintain a healthy colony. Any questions so far? Yes, no, maybe so.
Nothing in the chat.
All right, well, I'm talking a lot, people. All right. So tonics and supplementation. So herbalism, which is, how I work with people, is excellent at keeping people well, but it's not the mindset that a lot of Americans have. A lot of Americans just go along, chug, 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 until something bad happens, and then they are treatment focused. Now, obviously, if something bad happens, you want to be treatment focused, but what is better is to periodically do things that strengthen your systems and strengthen your ability to respond to things. And we call that tonic stuff, rather than a remedy. So taking tonics is a great way of staying well. And I'll give you an example. I take tonics, let's see, so 15 minutes before meals, I take digestive bitters, and the bitter is a tonic for me to stimulate digestive functioning. It's one of the ways that I maintain good gut health. I also, starting around October, as a tonic, I supplement my vitamin D because I live in Ohio. I need extra vitamin D. I know this after living here for several years. It's just something that has to happen. So starting in October, I start taking it, and I take it usually through the end of February. And I never have that horrible SAD ever again. I also periodically take different herbs as tonics. And so some of the things that I've taken include reishi mushroom, which we've talked about. I also regularly take ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is what we call an adaptogen. And an adaptogen is a safe herb for everyone that fortifies the endocrine system and usually one other system. And ashwagandha is truly the herb of our time because it is fantastic at modulating your stress response and your cortisol. It's great if you're taking it regularly to help you get good sleep. And it just brings the anxiety level down. I love ashwagandha. It's good stuff. I also periodically take what herbalists call either nutritives or alteratives. And what those do is they just give you so much more micronutrients, phytonutrients that your body may not be getting from commercialized food. Stinging nettles is one of them. And I love going out and foraging for wild food, because that food hasn't been growing in soil that is sort of denutrified. Commercial agriculture has stripped away, especially mineral content from our food, but also vitamins and amino acids. And so food isn't, even if you're eating a whole food diet, if you're getting most of that whole food from the grocery store, what you think you get in an apple when you look at the nutrition facts online may not be what you're getting, because we have sort of dumbed down the soil and, we've poisoned the water, and things don't have as much nutrition as they used to when they did all of those profiles for different kinds of whole foods. So I love foraging for food. Wild food has pretty much got all of its stuff intact. So stinging nettles, I will forage for those because they have tons of vitamin D3 and calcium and so much other kinds of minerals, and more chlorophyll than any other land plant. Just super good for you. Makes you feel really good when you eat it. And I love stinging nettles because it has that antihistamine stuff, which helps me as we enter the fall and have all the leaf mold. So stinging nettles is one of those nutritives that I like to take regularly. Alfalfa is another one. Oat straw is another one. And any kind of oats, really, as long as you know that they're not being commercially harvested, because a lot of those contain glyphosate, which is also known as Roundup. That's the brand name, and that really ravages your gut and causes all kinds of problems. But yeah, there's just so many ways to keep your immune system humming. I mentioned the time-infused vinegar for cleaning. I mentioned changing your toothbrushes. Obviously, you know, we've gotten a lot more alert these days, in the days of COVID, to washing our hands, keeping hand sanitizer around. I beg you, please, to wear your mask anytime you are among people that you're not sequestering with. It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not, and please wear a mask. The studies show that masking is the thing that's keeping people from getting infected. The vaccination is meant for you to not die, but it definitely still allows you to spread COVID, and it still allows you to suffer mildly from COVID. So wear your mask to minimize that risk when you have to go out. Let's see, what else?
Oh, and Lily, this is Darlene. We had one of our doctors on our advisory committee recommended wearing the mask, because he said not only just for the COVID, but the cold and flu season that we're coming into. He said last month, when everybody was masked, the flu in Ohio was virtually non-existent,
Right?
because everybody was masked. So in addition to COVID, with the flu season coming up, that's another good reminder as to why to stay safe that way.
Yeah, I mean, when the mask mandates go away, I may just wear them. I may, you know, it may just be permanent repertoire for me, because we're getting closer and closer to COVID not being a pandemic anymore, but being endemic, meaning we're going to have to live with COVID, because the responses have just been too slow and not enough to keep it from mutating and spreading. So for me, you know, it's not that big of a deal to, you know, buy my groceries wearing a mask. And it keeps me safe, and it keeps my family safe. And I've invested in some pretty more expensive masks. Like, you can buy the cheap ones for a few bucks, but I went ahead and got, there's a couple brands, and the one that I can remember off the top of my head is called Vogue Mask. I think they're out of the West Coast, and they've got really thick layers. Some of them are like charcoal in there, and they're N95s. They're really well made, and they're nice and snug. They fit really well. There's no gaps. Like, you know, a lot of those cloth masks, they get stretched out after a while, and, you know, they're just not effective. But the Vogue mask, I really like. They're spendy though, you know, they're like $33 or something. But I went ahead and invested in them because I know I'm going to be wearing them for a while. I also encourage you to get vaccinated if you haven't already. I am as skeptical of modern biochemical medicine as the next person, but I weighed the pros and cons, and I have both Moderna vaccines, and when it's time for me to get my booster, I will be getting my booster. The cons are just too much. You know, I don't want to scare anyone, but I have a friend who is fully vaccinated and had one of those breakthrough cases. He is now relearning to walk and speak and type because his brain swelling he got encephalitis from the COVID. And it's a tragedy, right? Like, he wore a mask, he was vaccinated, he was careful, and he still got it, and he got a really bad case. Hopefully the vaccinations will allow people, even if they do get an exposure and they get it, it will be a mild case and people will survive. That is my hope. Yeah. You know, basic things that we learned as kids, you know, when you have to cough or sneeze, chicken wing it instead of using your hands, because then you're going to go around touching things. Using soap and water to wash rather than just relying on hand sanitizer. All of those things are super important. Because I've seen, what is it? I forget what kind of photography it is, like blacklight photography, where they show how much is removed from hand washing versus how much is removed from sanitizer. And hand washing wins. Wash your hands with soap, warm water, and lots of friction, and sing happy birthday or Old MacDonald or whatever that song is. Do people have questions about specific illnesses?
You are welcome to put a question in the chat or unmute yourself and ask that question directly to Lily.
For sure. Yeah, I haven't gotten the flu in a couple years, and it's probably because I've been avoiding people and wearing masks for sure. There are herbs that you can take as tonics to help prevent all kinds of illness, both bacterial and viral. And so I kind of wanted to profile some of them. And these will be in your handout, so don't feel like you have to furiously take notes as I talk. So one of the most popular ones from Europe is elderberry. And you can often buy elderberry syrup online. It boosts the immune system, and elderberry is also antiviral in particular. There were concerns in the early part of the pandemic about using elderberry to prevent COVID if you've been exposed, mainly because of how elderberry works. It accelerates cytokine response, which you don't need to know what that means, but they found that you would have to ingest quite a lot in order for that to be a problem. So I still am a huge fan of elderberry. I make like an elixir, which I combine elderberry and thyme. Thyme is my very favorite herb. I use it in all my food because I like the taste, but also I use it in cleaning and I use it in medicine. And it kills more pathogens, both bacteria and viruses, than bleach. They've done lots of lab studies on it. There are hand sanitizers that use no alcohol. They just use thyme extract, and they are more effective. Like I said, I infuse apple cider vinegar with thyme to use as a surface cleaner. I also ingest it regularly. I grow, I think, 3 different kinds of thyme, and I'm constantly snipping it and I have a little herb basket that I keep for cooking. And I have tons of thyme in there, and I put it in my eggs, and I put it on my chicken and different foods, mix it in everything. It tastes delicious. So thyme is one. Another really powerful antiviral, which they've done lab studies, and it kills the herpes virus in vitro, and they're doing tests on it right now for HIV, is lemon balm. And lemon balm is delicious. If you make it as a tea, iced tea, or hot tea, lemon balm is amazing. It grows like a weed because it's in the mint family. You can grow your own lemon balm and just drink it throughout the winter and be taking in potent antiviral tea. I highly recommend that. Before I put my garden to bed, I'm going to be harvesting all that lemon balm and making sure that I have it all winter long. Another Ohio native is echinacea. And here in Ohio, Echinacea purpurea is the native, and it's just as medicinal as the one that comes from Europe. And you can use different parts of the plant. So when you have it blossoming, and those flowers are really pretty, purple cone flower, you can take the flowers and the leaves and make tea out of it. And then in the fall, after your plants die back, if you've got a whole bunch, because it tends to spread, it's a native wildflower. If you have a whole bunch and you kind of want to thin it out, go ahead and dig it up and use the root in the fall. And echinacea root is very immune boosting and antibacterial. So combined with lemon balm, you've got bacterial covered, you've got viral covered, and it makes a lovely tea. And then there are some really powerful antibacterial roots. Golden seal is a native here, but it is endangered because people are over-harvest it. So I often will recommend using the root of Oregon grape instead, which is really rampant. And you can grow it here, even though it's native to the Pacific Northwest. It contains the chemical berberine, which makes it very yellow when you extract it. It's bright yellow. And barberry is another one. You can grow barberry and use that root for berberine. And those are very powerful antibacterial constituents. Garlic. You know, I love garlic. I love to cook and I love garlic. And it's a powerful antibacterial. I will often use it in earache oil for kids that have ear infections, but regularly eating it as much as you can helps keep bacterial infections away. When you use garlic, you want to smash the cloves because a garlic clove has two parts to it. There's the fleshy outside, and then there's a tiny little ampule of oil on the inside. And unless you smash it and let them sort of mingle, the antibacterial stuff won't be as potent. It's the thing that makes garlic taste really garlicky. I don't know if you've experimented with garlic, but if you just take a head of garlic and bake it without smashing any of the cloves, it's very mild, very sweet. That is because you haven't mixed those two chemicals together to make the really intense garlic flavor, which is also antibacterial. So the best way, if you're making like a medicinal soup, let's say you're making a chicken soup for somebody who's sick and you want to use a bunch of garlic, smash those cloves, leave them on the cutting board for like 10 minutes while you do some other prep, and then go ahead and chop them fine after 10 minutes and put them in the soup. You will have extracted and mixed and mingled all of those chemicals to make them as potent as possible. So wait that 10 minutes, it's totally worth it. Reishi was one that we talked about. It's an immunomodulator, it's an adaptogen, it's gonna give you adrenal support. In China, they call it the mushroom of immortality for a reason. It's something that you can take on the regular. You can cycle on and off of it. It's good for you. I mentioned nettles. And then the last one I'll mention, which is also an adaptogen, it's an Ayurvedic one. It's called Tulsi or holy basil. You can grow it here in Ohio. I grew a bunch of it this year. It tastes delicious. It makes a wonderful tea. And it not only gives you adrenal support, but it also stabilizes blood sugar. So if you struggle with blood sugar stabilization, whether it's hypoglycemia or diabetes, Tulsi is your friend. And Tulsi is delicious with rose petals or cinnamon. It's very floral and sweet on its own. I don't ever sweeten my Tulsi tea because it's just so yummy. Yeah, and then one of the things I encourage folks to do is to actually make a tonic that they want to use. And you can blend some of these herbs together and keep it. You can steep a whole bunch in the fridge and keep it for a week and drink it every day. But one of the things that I like to do, and I've included a recipe for you in the handout, is to make fire cider. And the traditional recipe has garlic and hot peppers and horseradish and lemon and onion. One more thing, ginger root. So those 6 things, and you chop them up really fine and you let them steep in some vinegar for a month, and then you strain it all out and you add honey to taste, and you just do a shot of that every morning. It'll get you going. You won't even need coffee. It's very stimulating, and it does a couple things. Those ingredients do several things. They stimulate the immune system and functioning. They stimulate circulation, which is really great to enhance immunity, but also if you've got cold hands and feet in the winter, it's going to help with that. And it also fights pathogens. I tend to add thyme to mine because I like to make sure that I'm killing all the critters that I don't want in my body. But the recipe is on the handout that I'm sending. Yeah. What's the next slide? I can't remember now. Yep, I talked about those. Woohoo! I didn't talk about astragalus or yarrow, so I'll mention those real quick. Yarrow is an antimicrobial, both viruses and bacteria. It grows as a native wildflower here too. Get the white yarrow, the wild type, not the yellow or the pink, because I have no idea if it has the same constituents since it's been hybridized for color. But I grow yarrow and it's amazing. You can put it in tea, you can tincture it. And then astragalus is a root. I think actually that's astragalus in the picture. It's great for cold, flu, all kinds of viral infections. And you could put that in your fire cider. You'd probably have to send away for it mail order. If you can't find it in bulk at like Clintonville Natural Foods, maybe. But it is fantastic for cold and flu season. All right, we can move on to the next one, whatever that is. Oh, yep, here's the resources. So you guys will get you'll get this as well as the handout. EWG.org is that database of toxins that you can look up. Haven Herbs is the company that supports me in doing this. I formulate for them, so we have lots of different formulas like the digestive bitters. My website is on there. I do clinical consultations. Host Defense, I didn't mention them before, but I'll mention them now. They're also a company. They specialize in medicinal mushrooms. And if you're going to get mushroom supplements, that is who I would get them from. Because honestly, their extraction methods are superior. They grow everything in sterile organic conditions, and they have some amazing formulations. I have taken them myself. I recommend them. They're really great. And then if you're interested in learning more about how the immune system works, Crash Course Biology or Crash Course Anatomy and Physiology has all kinds of really great short videos that I actually show my herb students when they're learning about how the systems work. And the best way to know how to treat something is to know how it works, because then you're getting to the root cause, right? And so if you're on YouTube and you do Crash Course A&P, you'll see they have anatomy and physiology videos for every system of the body, multiple usually, like part 1, part 2. And they're amusing and fun and accessible. So if you're interested in how the body works, I highly recommend it.
Excellent. So thank you so much, Lily. Does anybody have any questions for her in these last couple minutes that we have? Quite a wealth of information.
Lily, what's
Yes.
the best way to dry your herbs or store them?
So there's a number of ways that you can dry them. It just depends on what access you have. So I tend to like to let them naturally air dry in a clean environment. So I have drying racks that I've built, and I've created the shelves with window screen in wooden frames stretched out so that the herbs get air circulation all the way around, and you put a thin layer across. I also use a dehumidifier in the room that it's in to kind of extract moisture as it's being released into the air. You want to make sure that, it's a clean room that is pest free when you do that. You can also use a dehydrator. You want to be careful not to use too much heat though, because you could burn your herbs. So knowing your dehydrator and knowing that it's on a pretty low heat setting, or using your oven if it can go down to 175 or lower, and really looking. If I have to use my oven to dehydrate, I don't usually do herbs in there. I'll do like medicines, like lozenges and things. But if I have to do that, I'll usually put everything not directly on a metal tray, but I'll put silicone mats down over them so that the metal doesn't heat up and then burn the whatever's on the tray, right? The silicone acts as a buffer. It makes it a little easier. But yeah, those are a couple ways. You can also build a solar dryer, which is pretty neat with, I would look on YouTube because I can't describe the whole process here, but it's a really cool box that's lined with foil and you amplify the sun and you can cook that way and you can also dehydrate that way. Yeah.
How do you store them then after they're dried?
So the best way is to make sure that they don't get any moisture and don't get any direct light or heat. And so there's a couple different ways that you can store. Brown paper bags will keep the light and the heat from doing things, but I like to store the brown paper bags inside a mason jar. So then you're not getting any moisture at all. So, you know, you take like a paper lunch sack and you roll it up, and keep it in there, and then you slide it in your mason jar and close it and then label the mason jar. Yeah, but keeping them out of light and heat and moisture is important.
Thank you.
I had a question on gut health.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do like colonoscopies twice a year, occasionally more, and have been doing that for, or at least once a year for the last 20 years. And I just feel like every time I do, it just wipes everything out. And I kind of try to start over again with yogurt and other kinds of things, but I haven't really found a good probiotic or whatever things that can really help. I'll do, usually I try to start back with yogurt and kombucha and that kind of stuff. But I'm just wondering if you had some suggestions.
For sure. Yeah, eating fermented foods regularly is great for maintaining, but if you've got like a situation where it decimates your colony, then probiotics is the way to go. I would look and see how many CFU, which is the measuring unit, is in your probiotic that you're selecting. It should be at least 10 billion CFU per dose. And then I would look for a broad range of strains, at least 8 different strains. We know that there's probably about 20 different microbiome critters living in there, but most probiotics don't go over 15. If you are looking for a way to poke around and look at the different types of probiotics, as a public service, I do have a full script dispensary, and you can access it through my website. On the footer, it says, you know, full script, and you can click on that, and then you can search the catalog, and they are deeply discounted professional grade supplements, things that I don't make, like probiotics or vitamins or whatever. And you can actually filter your results. You can say how many strains you want, how many CFU you want, if you want it gluten-free, if you want it non-GMO, and just sort of click all the different filters that you want, and it'll pull up results, and you can actually look at the profiles of each probiotic formula. And they have capsules, and they have liquids, and they have ones that need refrigeration, and they have ones that don't. But yeah, you know, if you want to go on my dispensary, I've made it so that it's, I think it's 20% off of retail, and most of those things are professional grade. They're not like things that you would find at the drugstore.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Heidi put in the chat that she uses full script.
Awesome. Yeah, no, they have a great selection of things. And yeah, like I said, I discounted it. All my clients have access to it, but I have it there on my website for the community at large, just because everybody needs supplements sometimes, and those things can be super spendy.
Yeah. By the way, I apologize for not being using my picture. It's just that I tend to be moving around a lot on my phone, and I'm sure it's quite distracting to have a constant moving background. So I usually just turn off my video.
Cool. No, I totally get it.
Any other questions or comments for Lily while we have her? Well, Lily, we are greatly appreciative of you taking the time to share your expertise and your knowledge. I will definitely be forwarding the PDF that we used today, as well as that Thriving in Cold and Flu handout that Lily referenced with that recipe that will definitely be looking into. The fiery definitely sounds fiery with horseradish and the fire cider with all of those wonderful ingredients. Please plan to join us on October the 13th when Lily's next presentation will be joint health. So thanks again, Lily. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank
Have a good day,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. It's wonderful,
Bye-bye.
as always.